Hey, what's going on everybody? It's Joseph from ScreenBite, and today I wanted to quickly go over how I got the look that I did in Davinci Resolve and Premiere for the interview that I shot last week. Now, this is the final look, and I do quite like how this came out. It's saturated, but not too saturated. It has a overall very cool tone to it, but it all in all just blends together really well. Now, the way we did this was first we started off in Davinci Resolve, and this was the model that I used, and this is where things get interesting. So this was my first time trying this out, and I think it came out pretty great. So I actually went 3 days prior to the shoot to get some sample shots to try to figure out the angles that I would want for the interview so we could get it in and out nice and quickly. It's definitely something I would recommend doing during your creative process because it helps quite a lot. And I actually got this shot. So this is going to be our test dummy for the day, and it was the test dummy for the grade that I started in Premiere. So this is how it came out of the camera. This was shot in Vlog on my Panasonic GH5. And the very first thing that I did was apply the Rec 709 LUTs. Let's go ahead and turn these back on. And that really brought it to a starting point that I liked. It brought the contrast back up, it brought some saturation into the shot, but I did go ahead and desaturate quite a bit in order to get the overall starting point that I wanted. Also in this layer, I did go ahead and tweak some of the contrast just to get things where I needed it to be. The next step here was to go ahead and apply some saturation and some contrast to only the face. Now, this was interesting because I'm not quite sure if this copied over for my final steps, which I'll explain why that happened in a moment. But to get this, what you're actually going to go ahead and do is first, go ahead and make sure this is selected, and you're going to go into your mask tool. You're going to go ahead and create a mask. I used the circle mask and then I feathered it quite a bit, and once I had that, I pumped up the saturation as well as the contrast to where I thought I wanted it to be for the shot, and from there I went ahead and tracked it. The tracking tool in Davinci Resolve is fantastic. I almost have no issues whenever I'm tracking, so it's definitely a very useful tool to utilize. The next step that we did for the grade was actually to move on and do the color grade itself. Now, I actually tweaked this by first raising some purple and some blues into my shadows and into my midtones. So the way we did this, let's go ahead and see. So if you go ahead and take it out of the shadows, this is what it looks like. Oopsie, let's go ahead and redo. Boom. So as you can see, you want to go ahead and add some shadows, some purple and blues into the shadows. I went to like right about there, and then I went ahead and did the same thing with the midtones, but it was more blue for the midtones. The next step that we did was we went ahead and applied, actually, what am I doing? There we go. Applied some more purple to the background to play around to see how that would look, and it looks interesting, but it's nowhere near the look that I'm going for. It was way too saturated, so I went ahead and I actually brought this back. But before we show you how we did that, to get this look, what you want to go ahead and do is go to your qualifier tab and then select the shadows. I chose the shadows on the wall and the pole as my starting point, and this is the mask that we got. So it looks very messy. I had to blur it quite a bit here in the luminance, and it just didn't come out the way I wanted it to. So as you can see in like the jacket, it's black, but in here it's purple. Just meh. So the way we counteracted this was, because I still liked the way that it was coming out, was I dialed this purple back quite a lot actually. So almost no purple at all, but there's just enough in there to mess with the look. And the next step that we went ahead and did, and this was the final step in Davinci Resolve, was to add some green back to the grass. Now, adding the green back to the grass is what sells this image to me, because what ends up happening here is it adds depth to the background, so it's not just a super contrasty, saturated person standing on a blue background. So yeah. And this basically is where I stopped in Davinci because I hadn't had my final footage yet to really mess with. So what I actually did was I outputted this as a LUT that I could use in Premiere to get me the rest of the way there. And the way you go about doing that, let's go ahead and switch to the other monitor, is to select your still. So this is the still that we're on. You right click and then you generate a 3D LUT cube. You save this to wherever you want. I already saved it, so I'm not going to do it now, and name it, and that's where you're going to go to your next step, which was done in Premiere. In Premiere, we went ahead and imported our footage after we got done the shoots, and this is how that image looked. So this is once again Vlog. So what we did next was we took our pre-created LUT and we went ahead and added it into Premiere. I named it Alpha Fitness Purple, and let's go ahead and turn it on, and voila, it took us 90% of the way there. And this is definitely a way I'm thinking about utilizing my LUTs in the future. Instead of using LUTs that I find around, I'm going to create my own inside DaVinci and then use them for my shots, because I really like how quick it made this process for me. So the next thing that I went ahead and did was I needed to bring back his skin tones, because like this, they're just not that great. So he looks a little sickly, and I just needed to bring his skin tones back out to add depth to the shot. So to do this, I went to my HSL secondary tool and this is what it looks like with it on. So off, on, off, on, off, on. So similar to the qualifier tool in Davinci Resolve, you go ahead and you pick this little tool here and select a mask. I chose his skin tones, which this is the mask that I ended up getting. So it touches his skin, but it doesn't touch the highlights or the deepest shadows. And what I went ahead and did next was push some yellows to oranges back into his face, but not too much, because we didn't want him looking like an Oompa Loompa. So also we added some temperature, because once again, you don't want to do too much because Oompa Loompa. And this brought his skin tones back just enough to make it natural. So once again, off, on, off, on. It makes a huge difference to the shots. Now, this was pretty good. And matter of fact, for a second, I thought I was done, but it wasn't quite there just yet. There was one final thing that I needed to do, and that was to add the grass back, add the green back to the grass. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where I think some of the stuff from the LUT didn't copy over. So I'm definitely gonna have to do some research into this, because the sharpness in the face wouldn't copy over because that was a tracked mask, and then the green in the grass didn't copy over either, but that was an easy fix. I went ahead and created an adjustment layer, added another Lumetri color tool, and then went ahead and added the green back, and this is what that looks like. So as you can see, that really ties the shot together once again. The green just really adds depth to the overall image and makes this one heck of a grade in my own personal opinion. And the way you add this green back was similar to how we did with the skin tones. So you're gonna go ahead and add another mask. This is the mask that I came up with for this spot. It pretty much grabs everything except everything that we needed. And then I added some green and yellows for a more natural tone to the grass. But yeah, that's how I got to the look that I got for that interview. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see future tutorials or exactly how I grade in Davinci and Premiere, I'll be glad to show you. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this video, guys. So thank you once again for watching. As always, if you liked it, make sure to show it by hitting that like button down below. It really helps me out. As well as if you have any questions about what we did here today or what I showed you, feel free to ask it in the comment section. You could also ask any questions that you have on Twitter at ScreenBite. Also, if you're new to the channel and you like my content, feel free to subscribe. But until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.